all agree that most people are afraid of death. And that's why my favorite villain in One Piece was always that guy who used the blood of his teenage son to reverse his aging. And what's that? Oh, that's not canon? Oh, that's okay. It's not in One Piece? You're telling me that's a real guy? So apparently there's a group of real world tech billionaires like Brian Johnson and Peter Thiel who are experimenting with young blood transfusions to escape aging. And even if it is really, really gross, I kinda get it. Not that I would do it, but everyone does have a healthy fear of mortality. I think at some point everyone goes through this battle between our humanity and our insane dreams of escaping it. In SBS volume 113, Oda just wrote that every person has big desires towards various things, and only when we have the reason to control those desires do we truly become human. It's possible that within humans exists the desire to become a celestial dragon. And I think that in a world that's quickly careening towards insane wealth inequality, post-humanism, and total world control by the elites, this quote isn't just about anime. To me, this resonated as a quote about what One Piece can teach us about power, technology, tyranny, and the terrifying things we might do if nobody stopped us. In the Egghead arc, Oda gave us a near perfect allegory for the human psyche. Vegapunk is a man who literally and figuratively has the biggest brain in the world, and he split his consciousness into 6 unique satellites. Truly, this setup is a philosopher's dream. If you know anything about the mind-body problem or mind-body dualism from Philosophy 101, you know what I'm getting at. And in this arc, things get very Freudian very fast. Because in the split, we have the perfect allegory of the 3 components of the human psyche described by Sigmund Freud. York is the id, the unconscious primal part driven by instincts and seeking immediate pleasure. Shaka is the superego, the moralistic part that internalizes societal rules and standards. And Stella, or the original Vegapunk, is the ego, the rational mediator that balances the id's desires with the superego's demands and the realities of the outside world. Of course, everything falls apart when York kills Shaka. Reason is silenced and desire becomes a full tyrant. She betrays her creator to join the celestial dragons. She hands over godlike technology at the chance of joining the bubble-headed royalty. And while it's obviously despicable, in that SBS, Oda's telling us that every single one of us contains a little York. And if we cut out or ignore our Shaka, the conscience, that inner tyrant isn't just gonna take over, it's going to thrive. It's really a classic psychological warning. Unchecked desire plus no ethical anchor equals a collapse of your humanity. And in One Piece terms, if York is the beginning of the fall, Doflamingo is the bottom of the pit. He was born as a celestial dragon and then stripped of the privilege, and he wants to burn the world. He kills his dad, enslaves a kingdom, treats people like objects, literally turns them into toys that are slaves. And why does he do it? Because he can. And he's terrifying because he's not spoiled and lazy like the other celestial dragons like St. Charlos. He's clever and charismatic and kind of a visionary, but he has no moral restraint at all. It's all intellect without any empathy. I bet he doesn't even think empathy is a real thing. And he clearly sees how messed up the world is, but instead of helping people, he copies those same gods and nobles that he hates. He becomes what hurt him. And he has what's probably the best quote about this in the series. Whoever wins becomes justice. And it's kind of the celestial dragon and maybe the real world elite worldview distilled into one sentence. Now on the other side of the One Piece coin, Vivi is also nobility. She's also from the original 20 families, but her ancestors chose not to become gods. They stayed in the real world on Earth. And Vivi again and again chooses not to dominate, but to serve. In the bad future sketches of Vivi that Oda shared in the same SBS, as she ages, she dons the same clothing as the celestial dragons. And I think it reveals that scary part of what she could be. Given different choices or a different upbringing, maybe that inner dragon would have won, but she didn't. She's literally grounded, not up in Mary Joie. And it's an interesting thing about One Piece that Oda's not making a commentary about what style of government is right. Monarchies are fine, as long as the ruler is good. And that's Vivi. She rejected supremacy, while characters like Doflamingo tried to embrace it. And then above the coin that those two characters sit on, there's Imu, the true monarch behind the curtain. They sit on the empty throne, a seat that's supposed to remain empty to represent equality between all nations. And they give demon god, antichrist, full biblical apocalypse vibes. They can wipe out entire countries with missiles raining from the sky, rule elites and the most terrifying military force in the world, and are pretty much confirmed to be immortal. And at this point, Imu's not even a monarch. They've transcended that. They're a myth. They're a god who doesn't age or bleed. And Oda's not subtle with it. Imu is what happens when power goes completely unopposed. The final celestial dragon, the end state of the inner tyrant, and probably Peter Thiel's wet dream. And of course, brings us back to Peter Thiel. Thiel is someone who says that death is the ultimate inequality, which honestly is incredibly convenient when you sit atop the economic ladder. He's a man who funds anti-aging technology and space colonies, and he's someone who famously read all of One Piece and didn't see himself in Emu at all. His take on One Piece boils down to one sentence from his essay, in my opinion. The question driving Oda's epic is who rules the world. And guys, I gotta level with you, it's truly insane. Because while that question is surely a part of what One Piece is about, to neglect the themes of adventure, liberation, and most importantly, freedom, is a scathing indictment of Thiel. His worldview and his morality, not to mention his reading comprehension. And unfortunately, I'm not gonna take the rest of this video to rip apart that essay, but if you do want that, go check out this video by fellow One Piece analyst, Big Dad. He does a great job at going over that essay and talking about Peter Thiel in that video. But the point of all this is that it exposes how out of touch with the real world and his own humanity this guy is. And when you look at all the facts, how out of touch the entire billionaire class has become with the world. Like during the pandemic, the top 10 billionaires doubled their wealth while 99% of the world got poorer. These are people who are spending their money building bunkers while the rest of us are building collective debt. They're talking about space colonies and uploading their consciousness to the cloud, all while the majority of people, real people, are suffering. Kim Kardashian went on a podcast and said that she wants to know how much people pay for a gallon of milk, all while in the United States we're cutting SNAP benefits so millions of people won't be able to get food for the holidays. It's not right. And when Musk calls himself like a techno king, or Thiel spends his money investing in seasteads and young people's blood, or when Jeff Bezos sails a $500 million yacht all while his factory workers are peeing in bottles. It's not some satire, it's real, it's real life. We're watching Mary Joie be built all around us. But as much as these people try to remove themselves from the real world, or cut their consciousness out of our mortal flesh prisons, the Egghead arc does a great job at showing why ultimately this is a fool's errand. Because Vegapunk 2 thought he could surgically remove the bad parts of himself. Put the greed in York, put the conscience in Shaka, and all he'd have to do is balance the world like some science god. Freud would have said that he tried to cheat human nature. Because we talked about this earlier. The id, superego, ego, and we know that when Shaka dies, it's not like York becomes evil all of a sudden. York's nature just becomes inevitable. In the text Civilization and Its Discontents, Freud told us, it's impossible to overlook the extent to which civilization is built upon a renunciation of instinct. But in One Piece, Oda doesn't just stop at renunciation. And in an evolution of Freud, this is where you enter Nietzsche. And I don't want to see a single comment about my pronunciation. But Nietzsche, who looked at the same inner conflict and said that renunciation alone isn't enough. We don't become humans by chaining our desires. We become human by aiming those desires at something higher. A weak tyrant wants control. The strong spirit wants freedom for themselves and for others. And in One Piece, that's Luffy's entire philosophy. I don't want to control things. I just want to be free. Nietzsche would have called that a revaluation of values, a rejection of domination in favor of self-overcoming. Luffy doesn't kill his inner celestial dragon, he tames it. Like Doflamingo looks at the world and sees winners and prey. Luffy looks at that same world and sees friends and future crewmates. Freud explains the struggle. Nietzsche shows the aspiration. And in One Piece, Oda gives us the roadmap. Accept your urges, recognize your hunger, but choose freedom over control. Choose joy over hierarchy. Because the celestial dragons didn't lose their humanity by being cruel. They lost it by being afraid. Afraid to live among the humans, breathe the same air, and be equal. Oda's philosophy in this SBS and in One Piece isn't to suppress your desires. It's to grow past the desire to rule. To choose to be free. With others, not above them. And that's why the final enemy of One Piece isn't some scary monster. It's the idea of a throne. And why the One Piece world isn't waiting for some new conqueror like Doflamingo said, but for someone who refuses to sit on the throne at all. To quote one of my favorite artists of all time, Childish Gambino, what's a leader if he isn't reluctant? Because progress in the hands of tyrants can never liberate. It can only enslave. Doflamingo once said that every human, even the most pious saint, harbors a latent streak of barbarity that surfaces when he sees blood. And I think this SBS is telling us that Oda agrees to a point. Yes, every human has an inner celestial dragon. Me, you, Peter Thiel, Trump, LeBron James, even the Rizzler. But inside of us, we also have a Shaka. And when you accept that, you realize we even have a Luffy. When you do the work, you realize there's something inside of you that says, I don't want to conquer anything. I just want to be free. And when we see Luffy, when we see that he doesn't punch gods to take their throne, but he punches them so that nobody has to kneel in front of them again. You know, we gotta realize, like, that's the fight. Not just between pirates and nobles and revolutionaries and kings, but the fight within all of us. When we humiliate someone weaker, or pull rank to win an argument, or, I don't know, when we hoard an insane amount of resources and refuse to help people at all, we're feeding that inner celestial dragon. But when we speak up, or stand up, or just help someone out, that's the shaka inside of us taking the reins back. So yeah, Theo might think that he's some Christ-like Luffy figure. If you're building fortresses and a way to escape Earth instead of just fixing it, you might already be wearing that bubble helmet. Or maybe the opposite of whatever Christ-like figure you think you are. So in your own life, heed Oda's words from the SBS. Only when we have the reason to control our desires do we become truly human. So go find your reason, people. Don't let the celestial dragons win. We can't let them win.